Tell me, we had the sad news recently of the death of Paolo Rossi. For you, Giovanni, what did Paolo
Mm.
mean to you and all Italians?
John, uh, when I was young, Paolo Rossi, he was my idol, no?
Ah, your
Because
idol.
I play, yes, I was born in 1966, no? And when the Italia won the Coppa Mundial,
The
no,
World
in
Cup.
Spain,
Hmm.
World Cup in Spain, I had 60 here,
Yes. Yeah, you were
no,
16.
16,
Hmm.
and I played football, and my role was a striker,
Yes.
and Paolo Rossi was
Your
my
idol.
idol,
Yes.
my idol, and I don't know he have a cancer problem,
Yeah, cancer. Yes.
cancer problem, and he was a very easy man, very polite, very and sometimes the life is no, it's a strange job.
I know. It's not fair. Sometimes life is not fair.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's not fair.
For me,
Yes,
the 82 World Cup, and of course for me, my favorite memory is Marco Tardelli's goal
Marco Tardelli. No, yeah,
and his celebration after the goal.
the celebration and my generation, no, is Marco Tardelli, Bruno Conti, Paolo Rossi, Bergomi,
Yes.
Dino Zoff, uh,
Probably the
and
greatest Italian team of all time, Giovanni. Would you
yes,
agree?
yes, yes, Cabrini,
Cabrini. Phew, what a team.
yeah, and in my mind, I have uh, the final again Alemania, no,
Against
and
Germany.
again Germany and the regroupment with Brazil and Argentina. Brazil, I think they were the top team,
Top.
the best team in the. Phew, it's incredible,
But it was an
and
incredible Italian team.
I think the Italian match now with VAR changed the
Yes.
because I
Yes.
remember Gentile again the Brazilian player again Maradona.
Yes. Yes.
That's incredible.
So with VAR,
But
yes. Yes.
the year, no, John, the 2020 is very complicated. Maradona, they Paolo Rossi, the coronavirus,
Yeah. It was
a lot.
it was a bad year.
Yes,
It was a bad year.
not
But
top year.
no, no. But we in 2021 we have many good things to look forward to. For example, Sassuolo will qualify for Europe. Yes. Number one.
No, it's important. It's important. Now, I think it's important that we come back to normality.
Yes. Yes. For everyone.
At a normality.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We want the football stadiums of the world to be full again.
Yeah, sold out the football stadium. Every every people can. okay, to go to the pub, go to the restaurant, go to the holiday. No,
Yes,
every day at home, every day at home.
it's difficult. It's
Yes,
difficult. It's difficult.
completely different.
Yes,
Completely different. Completely difficult, John.
yes. But hopefully with Sassuolo qualifying for Europe, it's one big thing to look forward to. I
Thanks.
hope so.
Cross,
Fingers
cross,
crossed.
cross my finger.
So, good evening, ladies and gents, and welcome to another Live and Leash Sports podcast, our first of 2021. Delighted to be joined, as always, by Stephen Kelly, and
Hi,
delighted to be
everyone.
joined by Evan Tracy from Wolf Hill. Evan,
How's it
welcome
going?
on board.
Thanks.
Killeshin FC play out of the Quakers Field. Do you know why it's
Yeah,
called the Quakers Field?
the Quakers Field. There was a family that owned that farm maybe 150 years ago that belonged to the Quakers Order. So during famine times. So that's how it got the name of the Quakers Field.
That's very good. That's very good. Now, Evan was able to tell us before you joined us, Ian, that you were one of the founding members of Killeshin FC.
Yeah, yeah, 1983.
Just a little bit before Evan's time.
Yeah.
Now, what did the club have? You had the first team. What facilities did you have then?
We played on, I suppose, when we formed in '83 as a schoolboys team. We played at various farms around the parish through generosity of local farmers. We played on my family farm. Malone's farm was the first farm we played on. My dad's farm, Man's farm. So it was farm fields, I suppose, for the first 30 years, you know,
And now,
until we started our own development.
yes, and like, when did you make that decision to make the big leap and get all the facilities in place for the club and its members?
I suppose about the pitch, about 2004, made the decision. I suppose we were playing on farm field, and the rising numbers of teams. We always basically had two men's teams and maybe two or three juvenile teams, but we moved up to 7 and 8 teams. And with the growth, the amount of players coming through, it was with a good active committee. So it was time to bite the bullet really and develop the club properly.
And like, where did the money come from, apart from the fundraising?
Fundraising really was the initial thing. You can't really develop anything unless you fundraise first. It's the most important thing. If you're going for sports capital grant, or if you're going to loan to the bank, you have to be able to show your ability to fundraise and meet any ongoing debts. So I suppose, like a lot of clubs in all sports, we started a lotto in around about 20 years, or I suppose about 15, 16 years ago, and that's been the cornerstone really for our development of the club. And that, I suppose, 5, 6 years of both a lotto and another important fundraiser time would have been an annual race night, or we were giving out our awards. Annual awards would have tied in with a race night. So by being able to put the funds from those two fundraisers to one side and save every year for 5 or 6 years, that got us into nice funds, you know.
Brilliant, brilliant. And I'm sure you've had help from local sponsors all the way through as well.
We've had, yeah. I think the development we have at the moment there, it wouldn't be there without the huge support across the community. I think the thing we would recognise really is those facilities we have now: a full-size FIFA all-weather pitch, a 3,500 square foot clubhouse, and one full-size sand pitch and a sand-based pitch, another one to come. They're a result of our community placing a huge value in what we as a club do within the community. Between the GA and soccer, 52 weeks of the year, kids in our community have access to excellent facilities that they know they're safe environment, well coached, and parents and families over the last few years are definitely putting more of a value on that now, you know.
Brilliant. And what? How many players would you have? Like, how many teams would you put out?
We've 18 teams affiliated this year, so we're 350 registered players.
Wow, it's a medium-sized club now. It's not small anymore.
No, it's the key to the growth has been the local primary school. For years we would have had teams coming through with start under 8, 9s, 10s, and start at 5-a-side, 7-a-side. And the biggest problem was numbers, not being able to keep that team together when they got to say 11-a-side at under 12 level, under 13 level, and you need 15 or 16 of a squad. So we wouldn't have enough, and the team would break up. So we had a conscious effort a few years ago to try and each team that had come along to try and get the numbers in from an early age that team could stay together the whole way up to youths. And then once it gets to youths, adult football, junior men's football is available to them. That once you come from junior infants into our academy, if you want to stay playing football, playing soccer in Killeshin, if you go away to college, you go away to work, that there's a team there that you grew up with the whole way through, and that right up to over 35s now. I suppose the eldest guys in the club me and my mates are all over 50, so we're still playing a little bit on a Wednesday night, you know.
You're hardly that age, are you, Ian? You don't look it. It's all the football you're playing. But do you cater for girls as well, Ian?
Yeah, we've 3 girls teams, under 10s, 12s, 14s. We had a women's team. It we didn't have enough to field the women's team this year. But hopefully again next year we will. I think the impact of the coronavirus, when we came to affiliate the team in August, some girls working in healthcare, a couple of girls pregnant, so just didn't have the numbers, but hopefully we'll get that back again next year, you know.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Yeah, that would be great. That would be great to see. And since your foundation, Ian, has the club always played in the Carlow and District League?
Yeah, the club started out in 1983 in the Carlow District Schoolboys League, and then in 1986 joined the Carlow District Football League, which was the men's junior league, which formed in 1986. So I suppose this end of Laois down here, the clubs, there's about 6 clubs in Laois that all play in the Carlow District League. There'll be ourselves, St. Pat's Boys and St. Felix and Great Cullen, Creddy Yard, St. Anne's and Ballylinen, and Wolf Hill, who are gone now, and Roundtown Rovers in Timahoe. So all those clubs will play the Carlow District League. I suppose Laois soccer lacks a profile in Laois due to the fact that it doesn't have a Laois District League, so to speak. Yes. So clubs playing in Carlow District League, Kenny League, Combined Counties League, Leinster Senior League. So we wouldn't have the same rivalries because we don't play each other as we would have in GAA, but we'd have those rivalries with the Carlow clubs. And lads going to school together from the clubs in Carlow. So it's very important for clubs to have those rivalries, you know.
Yeah, well, that's the lifeblood of any sport. You like the neighbours. Yeah. And would it be fair to say Cretchard would be your big rivals at the moment?
In fairness, they have led the way in men's junior football over the last 15 years or so. They are the benchmark in the men's junior game around here, and their achievements in the Premier Division have been excellent, exceptional. They've set the benchmark, and to be able to see a rural club being able to attain that standard over a long period of time, you'd have to tip your hat to them with that regard, you know, and it just shows that rural clubs can compete at that level. That's what they've done.
Yeah, and well done to Cretchard United. It's great to see it. And I mean, the onus now is on other clubs in Laois, regardless of what league they're playing in, to actually raise the standards and raise the level. And Ian, what do you think basically can be done to raise the profile for soccer in the county?
That's a tricky one, you know. Like we play in the Carlow District League, and the Nationals done the figures on it there about 2 years ago. In the catchment area for the Carlow District League, more people play soccer than play Gaelic games, you know. And I think it's over 400,000 people in the Republic of Ireland alone, members of the soccer club, actually paid up players who were affiliated. So it is the biggest participant sport. But without a Laois and District League, it'll never get the profile in Laois, because you'll have 5 or 6 teams playing in Kilkenny, 5 or 6 in Carlow, and a good few teams in the combined counties. So that's a tough question. I don't know the answer, you know.
And I don't want to put you on the spot, like, don't answer it if you don't want to. Would you like to see a Laois and District League? Perhaps
a Laois and District Cup as a one-off might be might be a good starting point. That might start a pre-season thing maybe in August. But the biggest problem for our clubs down through the years has been the GA season. Traditionally, when I would have played both sports years ago, like the GA Championship was finished in August, or early September, and so then you went straight on to play soccer. So we'd have a maybe 70-80% turnover of players playing both sports. But that's gotten smaller and smaller as the years gone on. GA season extended in September, October, so it's quite difficult for lads to be dual players and commit to both. So as regards to Laois and District League, while it would benefit the game on one extent, I think that we've built up a good tradition and good rivalries with the clubs in the Carlow District League. So my answer would be, I don't know. That's straight, We're with the Carlow District League since it's founded,
Yeah, it's a tough question to throw out at you. But definitely your suggestion of a pre-season cup involving all the Laois clubs would be very, very good.
Yeah.
Very, very good.
Yeah, if you get a sponsor for that, it'd be an ideal pre-season competition. But from our perspective, August, September is a very difficult month. We've three junior men's teams, A, B and C this year, and the clash with Gaelic football. Now, maybe it'll change with the current GA season where the club championships might start now in June or July, a couple of months earlier, and if your club in your parish goes out a bit earlier. But it is a difficult enough time to be full strength in August, September,
Absolutely. Yeah, you've men playing both sports. So, and from 1983, Ian, were there any matches that really stood out for you? Any high points?
We've been in nearly men a lot of the time. I suppose in the early 90s we were runners up in the Premier Division twice, and we won the Shield 3 times. Actually, we won the Carlow District Shield 3 times in the early 90s, and we thought it was only a matter of time probably before we win a Premier Division. We never won a Premier Division, and we were in the Premier Division for about 20 years, and about 7 or 8 years ago we slipped down to the second division, but we're back up in the Premier now. I think the success of our under 16.
Weren't you pipped at the post one year by New Oak Boys?
No, Walkerstown pipped us twice, and then a third time. On the third year on that row, we were 4 points up with 3 games to go and lost the league. So it's
painful.
That's still there.
Yeah, the hurt is there. That's going to drive the club on.
Well gone by now, but at the time it did. Yeah, but I think the key for us and for all clubs is really the twin approach attack on development of facilities, vital, and development of your coaches. Coach development through the FAI PDP is vital, and you can see the improvement dramatically in the last few years as a result of our coaches being brought up to a proficient standard, I suppose, way to describe it, at the coaching levels through the FAI player development plan, and that, along with development of facilities, is the future really for our club and for any clubs that really want to secure their future.
Absolutely. If you can't provide good coaching, you're in the wrong game. Excuse the pun.
Yeah.
Excuse the pun. Now I'll hand the mic over to Evan, your clubmate, Evan Tracy.
Okay.
Evan, do you want to grill Ian here? He's in the hot seat.
I won't go too hard on him.
All right, Evan, thanks.
Did you think the club would get as developed as it was when you were starting off?
No, I think, to be fair, I haven't mentioned them so far, and that's Laois Partnership. We've got leader funding for our all-weather pitch, and for the full-size, I think we're the first club in Laois outside of the one in Port Laois to have a full-size, on our own full-size floodlit AstroTurf pitch, and as part of the deal on that, we have to make that available as a multi-use games area to other community groups, and that, only for that grant aid, it wouldn't be a feasible project for us at our level. So I'd just like to give them a mention. Laois LCDC and Laois Partnership backed us on that when they saw the amount of the huge progress in the amount of teams we have and the amount of players we have, and then how we were able to make that facility available, hopefully going forward, now that it's open. Their backing was huge for us.
And is it the first year that Killeshin have had a C team?
No, we had 3 teams in the mid-90s at one stage, A, B and C. We had it before, 3 teams, yeah.
Fair enough.
All right.
Let Stephen ask a few questions if he wants.
Yeah, no worries. I'd be kind of wondering now, if now that you've got your facilities kind of in order, I suppose, what would be your next ambition, would you say, if you were to look 10 years down the line? What would you like to achieve maybe as a club, do you think? Or
yeah, that's a good question. We appointed a club coaching coordinator this year, Ollie Brennan. Ollie has been stalwart coaching the club for years, and definitely to raise the bar with the standard of coaching. So when kids come into the academy under 6 level from junior infants in school, that we have coaches of the standard required to keep them developing so they can enjoy the game and I suppose develop to the maximum potential as players to enjoy the game and stay playing the game right through adulthood then, you know. So that would be definitely now we have our facilities coaching.
very good. And there was one other question that probably wouldn't be necessarily directly related to the club, your own club, but I just thought of it there. I just thought it'd be interesting to ask. Do you ever think we'll see the day where a Midlands team might potentially get into, say, like a first division or a electricity league or anything like that? Do you think, or do you think the standards have to get up a lot higher, or are we
I think the history doesn't bode well for League of Ireland clubs. Other than Athlone Town and Longford Town, there's no clubs up through the Midlands. I mean, majority of counties in Ireland don't have a League of Ireland club. I think it's only 11 or 12 counties have. The biggest problem you would have seen with like Kilkenny City, Kildare County, Monaghan United, they don't have the population to sustain a semi-professional game. And if you want to stay an amateur level, you know, it's very hard to progress. You start paying wages to players. I mean, then you're coming up. Say, for example, there's a club in Carlow or Laois. Their biggest problem will be competing for sponsors against the likes of us, where we are a community-based organisation, like all soccer junior clubs, trying to promote the game in our communities. And while we would love to see players go on and play at a higher standard, absolutely, is the population there to sustain start from scratch a semi-professional club? I best luck to anyone who's going to try it in Carlow-Kilkenny or make a good stab at it with the under 15s, 17s and 19s. That might grow into something. They're starting at that scale, but I think to just plonk out of nowhere with a League of Ireland club and it costing you 2, 3, 4, 500 grand a year to run it.
It'll take a lot of time to get up to that, like to even realistically think about it. Because I was just thinking there at the weekend, obviously, like it's a different kind of kettle of fish altogether. But you seen the Marine playing Spurs, they're an 8-tier English club. I thought that was mad. I had to like count back how many tiers that was. I was like going back from the Premier League the whole way back, and I was lost then after the conference. I didn't know anything after that, you know. Yeah.
Ian, do you think the quality of football has changed much? Since
I definitely think I'd say I nearly throw the question back at you, Evan, nearly, since you know, because I definitely think so. I think that the coaching and having the Carlow IT on our doorstep to be able to avail of the UEFA B and UEFA C coaches that they're producing there at the moment, I mean, I think that definitely has a huge knock-on effect locally here in Carlow. And Carlow winning the Oscar, the Carlow League winning the Oscar Trainer national competition 2 years ago says a lot about it at that level, but definitely at juvenile level, the advancement in coaching has definitely brought it on. Absolutely.
I think what Ollie Brennan has done with youths from say 2 or 3 years ago has brought it up a lot, the senior standard. Like.
Yeah, and how Ollie's gone on, I think he's on UFC now. So when you have coaches that want to drive themselves on, like all sports, it's vital. Like, you know, when coaches see that themselves and see that they need to do that, it has a fantastic knock-on effect, you know, on the players.
And Ian, I'm amazed nobody.
It's all for me, anyways.
Didn't go too hard on me anyway.
No, nice and easy. But I'm amazed Evan or Stephen didn't ask you the best ever Killeshin FC player.
Oh.
We had that's a good one now, because we had a player stand well. We have one player there who's only played a bit the last 3 years, and he went over to England. He got trials with Blackburn and Southampton. David Aston, he takes the freeze for Killeshin's first team, senior football team at the moment. But we had a player definitely would stand out. He got Carlow District League Footballer of the Year. He captained Oscar Trainers. Eugene Rourke's name, and Eugene played with me down through the years. But he also still holds the record for the Laois javelin. He was runner up to Terry McHugh several times in the All Ireland and the Leinsters, and Eugene still holds the record for Leinster javelin, senior javelin. So he was centre back on our team for years, and also on a Gaelic football team. And he's definitely, for me, the standout player that we ever produced. He actually had this long throw from the javelin, and some goalkeepers didn't even realise that. Goalkeepers don't realise that you can't score directly from a throw. And twice he scored from a throw. The goals were being disallowed on it. Goalies tried to stop them and ended up palming them into the net. So, but if they just let the ball go into the net, it wouldn't have counted. The goalkeepers don't even know that. So, he's an all-rounder.
Oh my God, that's
a difficult one.
That's a weapon to have, though, isn't it?
Yeah. Great times.
It's a difficult one, but if you had to pick an all-time like Killeshin 11, what would your top team be?
I'd have to pass on that one for the moment. That's not leading too much trouble.
Getting called out on air.
Yeah, no. I leave that to greater minds than me.
Yeah, exactly, Evan. He's in enough
I leave that for the pub when they're ever to reopen.
Brilliant. Gents, any more questions for Ian while we have him?
Nothing from me, anyways.
Trying to think now. Would you say like your like playing days would have say had an influence on how you kind of like saw where the club was going? Would you say, or is it just kind of something that's kind of developed?
No, that's a very good point. It's a very good point. Yeah. No, I definitely think facilities and coaching we would have realised from a younger age playing. You know, when the league started in the 80s, there was a lot of guys. It was just basically crossover lads that have been playing GA, taking up soccer in their mid-20s or teenage years, and coaching was very was almost non-existent in ways. You know, it was just basically management, and so development of facilities away from farm pitches and to be able to maintain our own pitches all year round. They're the two main things, definitely.
You didn't want history repeating itself anyway, turning up in the back. Because I know even for mine, I'm not even going that far back. Like I remember turning up to, I actually played my soccer, because my dad is a Tipperary man, so I actually played in the North Tipperary Schoolboys League. And I remember turning up to some away days, and God almighty, the pitches were in tatters. They were. Be happy to see a decent enough pitch.
Yeah, our pitches tend to have a lot of sheep fiches, for the want of. I'm trying to think of the appropriate term to call it. You know what it is anyway. And we still playing a lot of Dublin teams, Leinster Junior Cup and FAI Junior Cup, and to come down to play a team where and to get the stride. That was always good to see. Enjoyable.
Yeah. That's fair enough. Yeah. That was always something I loved. A nice carpet pitch. It's not too much to ask, is it?
Oh, not too much.
No, you have the facilities now. You just have to go on and win the Premier Division. Ian.
That's it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Ian, thanks for your time this evening. Really appreciate it. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, just again, just get you. Sorry, I just have to put my head in to get you there, yeah.
No problem at all. Just thanks for joining us this evening, Ian. We really appreciate it.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me on.
Hopefully we haven't gotten you in too much trouble.
No.
Very good, very good. And I think we have Michal waiting for us as well, do we?
That's right. Yeah, Michal. All right, Michal, how's it going?
Not too bad, how are you?
All right, you're in for a grilling.
Apparently.
Not at all, Michal. Now, Evan, you have a few questions for Michal.
In terms of Carlow-Kilkenny, how do you think like the lockdown is going to affect the team?
Going forward for next year?
Yeah.
Well, last year affected us massively because obviously it was stop and start for about 3 or 4 different times. which really affected our plans, fitness, the schedule and everything. But next year now, ideally, like what we would have been doing over December is we would have been doing our trials for the 17s. So we have the 17s next year, which we didn't get to do. We would have been doing our recruiting and stuff. We would have been going looking at players that we wanted in friendly games. So as a staffer initially, it's already affecting us massively. We will be starting our pre-season about the second week of January, and the season itself would start in March. But again, at the moment we've absolutely no training whatsoever. We don't even have our squad. We'd have an idea of some of them, but until we do trials we can't confirm it, so we can't even work with them as if it's an off season. We can't really do stuff because we can't just assume who our 18 will be. So what it's really doing for us is it's massively delaying it back as far as until they tell us we can play. I suppose the only good thing is at least we know once we are back, hopefully there's no backward steps anymore. So it is very bad that way, because it's just meaning that our season's been delayed, and hopefully it just doesn't mean that we lose out on any players.
And do you think Carlow-Kilkenny will have a set pitch in years' time? Or?
They won't next season, probably not the season after. It is in the aim of the club, 100%. It's in their plan. They're developing a lot, in fairness, because it used to be just 15s and 17s boys. Now next season it's going to be 14s, 15s and 17s boys, and it's going to be 17s and 19s girls. And then next year the aim is to be 19s boys. So I presume if you're going to have that many teams, you're going to have your own ground, which is something that they are aiming towards. But sometimes that's a lot easier said than done, because they have to actually get a location. They have to have enough money to do it. But it is definitely in the plan. How close they are to it, the people higher up in the club now would know a bit better than me, but that's all I know.
You've coached Wexford Youth's women's. Is that much of a difference to the younger teams? Like,
it would be. It'd be different in terms of dealing with people, I suppose. But at the same time, in terms of football level, I was actually at an international conference done by the senior women's national team manager, and they actually say that senior women is kind of the same level as under 14, 15s boys. So it was actually a nice level to transfer across at, because it's a similar enough level. We would have done our friendlies against each other before I moved, and then after I moved I would have got friendlies with them as well. So it's good that way. In terms of football and ability, you're actually quite close, but the pace is massively different. The speed, the strength, all those kind of things. When you work with young lads, you kind of realise how they're actually, because when you're working with women that are kind of at that level, they're very intelligent, their football brains are very advanced. So what you change from is getting across and trying to actually get the young lads up to that level, because obviously they're only 14, 15, their brains aren't as developed. So that's kind of what you have to focus on then at that age.
Is there any players that you've coached that really stood out to you?
Yeah, to be fair, this year when we started, there might have been 1 or 2 or 3 names that we were kind of told initially that were good players, and there were some that were actually quite surprising. Like our centre back is James Boland. He got Player of the Year by the players and by the coaches for us, and he's excellent. Like, plays centre back, attitude excellent, everything, discipline, leader on the pitch, always positive. Never really has a bad minute in any game that we've played, which is surprising for someone at the age of 14 to be that consistent all the time, but he's just that dedicated. And then you have a kind of a different kind of player then as well, which would have been our striker this year, Anthony, who is probably the most skillful player I've ever seen at that age, really, because it's just pure natural to him. And if you'd ask any players in the squad who we played against, he's very, very difficult to play against, because he's just so skillful, and just left foot is just so good. So they've been really good to coach now, in fairness. They've been interesting to see.
Brilliant. And just, I don't know, I think Ian's gone there. But
I can't really hear you there.
Can't hear you, John.
No, hang on a second there. There's a problem there with the sound the whole time.
Have you now?
You have me here?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, Michal, basically, is the plan to have full internationals coming out of your setup?
Ideally, yeah. Every year, what we're given these player profile documents. If you say that we would recommend players that we think are good enough to get international assessments, so we would give them to the director of football, and they would pass them on to the international teams, and they would also come and watch your matches. And last year, I would have been in contact with scouts from the international team in our age group who would have been telling me who they're looking at, what they think of them. I would have been passing on video of all of our games, because on request by them, on certain players that they were looking at. So obviously the eyes are always there, which people don't really think until you're involved in the setup, but they are always there looking at your games. And to be honest, we probably had 4 or 5 players who would be close enough to be able to catch the eye and see are they good enough for that spot. So it's definitely the aim. I think that's what, between the 4 of us and the staff, that's definitely what we're aiming towards, because that's where the player wants to be. So if you want to have them in your team, that's where you need to push them to be.
That's good to hear. So they are being scouted, because rural clubs before and clubs outside of Dublin would always have argued, well, we're not being watched, our players aren't being tracked. But
yeah,
that's no longer the case, is it, Michal?
No, definitely not. And I would have been of that opinion always growing up as well. And obviously in Dublin, there's probably more eyes on you and more eyes from different places than there would be anywhere else, just because, of course, there would be, because it's such a big county in terms of population. But there are definitely, like, I know every game that we played from about 3 or 4 games before the group started, so even in our friendlies, there was either someone at the game, or I was sending all games to someone who I was regularly in contact with, and he was involved with the international setup, and he was constantly updating me with what was happening, the trial dates, which players he was looking at, what they need, what they don't have. And one of our players did go to an international assessment, and to be fair, Jason, the international manager, rang me afterwards, and there was feedback there as well. So it isn't a closed off thing where you get a little bit of a sniff and that's it. There is good communication there all the time. So there's definitely opportunity.
Well, that's great. That's great to hear that. Now, Stephen, have you any questions for me, Hall?
Yeah, I do indeed. I was just kind of wondering, what kind of, like, would there be a main kind of club that would be the kind of like the backbone of your teams, or would it be kind of very branched out? Like, what kind of clubs would you be? Would it be kind of a consistent thread, or would it be just a case of, like, you know, we don't really kind of base on club, like, it's just if you're good enough kind of thing. Do you know what I mean?
It's definitely a case of if you're good enough, you're good enough. It will be with us especially because no one on our staff is originally from Carlow. So because none of us are originally from Carlow, we really came into it with an open mindset where we don't know the people, we don't know their families, and there's no bias whatsoever. However, with our team, there was a strong link from Hanover, just because that was such a strong Hanover team. If that's the case, fair enough. But even still, we did go to Wicklow, Waterford, Wexford, watching games just to see other players within the age group, and we tried to maximise as many players at the trials as possible. And to be honest, it doesn't really matter to us where they come from, because we're not local to Carlow, so there's no bias in the back of your head whatsoever. So there will be a mix, and then next year with the 17s, it could be a completely different club that dominates it, or it could be completely equal. It just so happened that the Hanover team was so strong that we ended up probably with more players from there than we did from any other club.
And Michal, how come this year there's an under-19s women's team, but they haven't had an under-19s boys team?
So this year the League of Ireland have decided to go 14s boys and get rid of the Kennedy Cup. So if you're going 14s boys, they see it more important to maintain something competitive at the 14s level, because if the Kennedy Cup's gone, you still want something for the players of that age to have. So it's important for you to have a 14s that's followed by a 15s, because then you create 2 consecutive years of League of Ireland. Whereas if you go 19s straight away, you don't know how strong that squad will be. 19s becomes extremely competitive in the League of Ireland. You go 15s, it's development. 17s, it's competitive. 19s, it's extremely competitive. So you have to be able to sustain it. Whereas if they can go 14s and 15s, they get 2 consecutive years. Players get to play there for 2 full years. And again, it's all about the players. So then that means they've probably a better chance than any previous years to stay 17s, even though that's a jump. So it's just about building from the bottom, I suppose. And once they brought that out this year, everyone kind of had to go with it. It was the priority.
In terms of coaching personally, how high up do you aspire to go?
Well, I've done the UEFA B now, and I hope to do the UEFA A starting in October. I know there's one starting in October, so I hope to do that. And then you can do your Elite B and Elite A, but that's a bit of a different pathway. After the A, there would be the Pro, but that's something that you kind of have to build a lot of experience towards. You'd want to really be coaching at probably a higher level again. If you're coaching League of Ireland or managing League of Ireland 19s, you can get onto it. But obviously, I just want to keep going until I can either get that or aspire to get that. To be honest, for me, that would be my ambition. If I can get the A next year, I don't see any reason as to why I wouldn't be able to eventually get onto the one after it.
I was just wondering there, Michael, who would your main opponents be? Would those have been kind of a team you would be playing, not even say up along with, say, in one particular age group that you think to yourselves, I wouldn't mind nicking a few of their players, or would it be just the case of like it just depends on the year, or what would you think?
I suppose. Well, see, first I would only be able to talk based on this year, because I suppose only this year coaching that league. So from the players we played against, I did try to get a few players from Waterford, which I didn't get, because there are a few very talented players in Waterford, and they didn't actually play for Waterford either. They were good enough, but Waterford did this thing where they brought their whole 13s team straight to 15s and didn't bring any of the players who were actually under 15. So we saw that as an opportunity to kind of take the older players from Waterford, but we just didn't get them because it was just, let's say, it's just not easy to get players from clubs a lot of the time. So there was a few of them, and then obviously Kildare went League of Ireland this year as well, and they have some very strong players. Both of their fullbacks are international players, so ideally, if you could get the two of them, you would be happy out. But sure, again, that's the difference. So they would have been strong. Waterford would have been strong, and if you could have got the players you wanted out of there, I suppose, of course you would.
Very good. And I was going to ask you. Sorry, you go.
Stephen. Yeah, go on. No, go ahead there.
All right. I was just going to ask, like, as a coach, like, you're obviously kind of building towards, like, you were just talking about the licenses you want to do there in October. What would you say would be the main kind of like challenge you would have had to face, like, so far as a coach, would you say?
I suppose the last 2 years would have been the biggest challenge, because before that I was just coaching local county teams and coaching local teams, and then going to Wexford was quite a big jump because it was straight into quite a professional setup, and we ended up going and coaching over in the Champions League qualifiers. So going over to Lithuania, that was quite intense. I was doing the analysis and stuff, which would have taken up a good few hours a day. So you would have been analysing 4 or 5 games of an opponent and trying to pick out not only how they're going to play and who they have, but how they're going to play, who they have, their plan A, B, C, stuff like that. So that was quite a big challenge, because we were playing against teams where Wexford Women was an amateur team, and we were playing against professional women's teams that have budget of over $1 million or $2 million a year. So that would have been a big challenge to be able to overcome that tactically. And then, of course, this year it was all on me, kind of, because I was the manager of the team. So that was a challenge to be able to get a team to play in a way that resembles how you want football to be played. And I think that takes a little bit of time to click and for it to make sense in your head. But that is definitely one of the biggest challenges, is to look at the pitch and say, yeah, that's what I wanted and that's how I want them to play. So that is definitely an ongoing challenge all the time.
Very good.
Evan, any more questions from you, Evan?
He's frozen. For me, anyway.
Very good, very good. Well, Michal, thanks for coming in this evening. Really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem at all. Thanks for having me.
A pleasure, and best of luck for the coming season whenever it begins.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Thanks.
Best of luck, Michal.
Best
of luck. Talk to you soon. All right.
Thanks.
Thanks. That's great.